Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible? Yes. Okay, it's my kind request to all those students who have not entered as per their roll number first. So I can see here it's Gandhali, it's Gange Priyanka, Saroj Pinjari. Please write your roll numbers. You can open the participants and please rename yourself right now. Please you rename yourself. It's Apeksha. Tell her also. Apeksha Naikare. Rename yourself. Gandhali, please rename yourself. Sagar Kadam, please mention your roll number. Okay, so let's begin with our today's topic. Once again, I welcome you all for our this virtual class from Department of Community Medicine. Quick review what we studied up till now. Nutrients, these are also called as food factors which are organic or inorganic complexes present in the food. These are classified as macronutrients. Example, proteins, fats and carbohydrates, and micronutrients. Examples, vitamins and minerals. You should know macronutrients, they are also called as proximate principles. And majority of these vitamins, they are obtained from food and they play important role in growth and in health promotion. We classified food based on four different criterias: its origin, function, composition, and nutritive value. Depending on origin, these are animal foods and plant foods. Depending on predominant function, bodybuilding foods, energy giving foods, and protective foods. Based on chemical composition, we said these are only nutrients, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. This is the most important thing. At least first 5-6 ranking you are supposed to know. Classification of food based on nutritive value. It's cereals and millets, pulses and legumes, vegetables, nuts and oilseeds, fruits. Next in ranking is animal foods, fats and different types of oils that we consume in our diet, sugar and jaggery, condiments and spices, and finally it is miscellaneous foods. We have seen vitamins. You should not forget these are essential nutrients. Vitamins are organic in nature. They are required in very small amounts. And regarding their synthesis, vitamins cannot be synthesized in our body. There are few exceptions, but these exceptions you should know. We are going to study these vitamins in detail later on. But for the sources, we should have to see the dietary sources because majority of vitamins our body will get from our diet. Classification of vitamins. Vitamins we classified as fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. examples under fat soluble vitamins: vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E and vitamin K. Whereas water soluble vitamins, it includes B group vitamins and vitamin C. Uh, Please mute yourself. Someone's audio is on. Okay. Now regarding this classification, two important things you are supposed to know. As far as cooking processes, we are talking about ordinary cooking processes that are used in our household cooking. What is effect of these cooking processes on the loss of nutritive value of fat soluble vitamins? Now, as far as ordinary cooking processes or ordinary cooking methods are concerned, the fat soluble vitamins are generally not destroyed. But on the contrary, if these are water soluble vitamins, on exposure to heat or even on exposure to light, there may occur loss of nutritive value of water soluble or B group vitamin. So this is effect of cooking methods on fat soluble vitamins or water soluble vitamins. One more thing you are supposed to know is what happens if these vitamins are either taken in excess amounts or they are supplied in the form of medicines. So excess supply of vitamins, if it occurs, what can happen? As far as fat soluble vitamins are concerned, it may result in toxicity or hypervitaminosis. As far as water soluble vitamins are concerned, generally they get excreted out and there is no toxicity that can result with excess intake of B group or vitamin C. So these two things you are supposed to know: effect of cooking methods on fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins, and what can happen if there is excess supply of these vitamins. Vitamin A, yesterday we have seen, you should know preformed vitamin. Example of this is retinol, which we can get from animal foods. Whereas provitamin is beta carotene, and 4 antis are there, 3 are displayed here. Since it provides protection against infection, we call it as anti-infective. Since there is protection against cancer, we are calling it as anti-carcinogenic and anti-xerophthalmic, since it provides protection against xerophthalmia. And one more function which is related with destruction of free radicals. That's why we call it as antioxidants. Most important function here, you should remember, this vitamin, it is required for vision in dim light. There are various sources. Under 3 heads you are supposed to mention it: animal foods, plant foods and fortified foods. The ranking you should not forget. In animal foods, the first should be fish liver oils. Though these are not edible, still you are supposed to mention it, followed by egg, fish, meat, butter and cheese. Plant foods, again on the top, it should be green leafy vegetables. And what is meaning of fortified foods? I think you all can recall it. Whenever the foods, we are going to add certain nutrients to the food articles, these food articles are called as fortified foods. यहाँ पे हम सिर्फ न्यूट्रिएंट्स को ऐड कर रहे हैं किसी बेसिक फूड आइटम्स में. तो एग्जाम्पल हियर इज वनस्पति, दैट इज डालडा. Regarding absorption and storage, already we have discussed. Storage form is retinol palmitate and it is stored in liver. Deficiency, again 2 important heads you are supposed to know: ocular manifestations and extraocular manifestations. Ocular manifestations, again these 5 points are very important and very essential to mention. It's night blindness, that is inability to see in dim light or inability to see at late evening time. It's conjunctival xerosis, What thing you are supposed to know regarding conjunctival xerosis? This is the first sign of deficiency of vitamin A. There can be corneal xerosis, keratomelacia, and whiteout spots. So these are the few images that already we have seen yesterday. Conjunctival xerosis, don't forget the first sign whenever you are observing eyes of your patient. If it is child, if you are suspecting deficiency of vitamin A, this is the first thing that you are supposed to notice. This is corneal xerosis. This is keratomelacia. You should not forget liquefactive necrosis. Cornea will become soft. There is possibility that cornea may rupture, resulting in permanent blindness. These are whiteout spots, foamy appearance. You are supposed to pay attention here. This is xerophthalmia. So just in one word, if examiner asks you to describe deficiency of vitamin A, the single word that you can use in relation to ocular manifestations is xerophthalmia, meaning dry eye. And you can notice this dryness in this image. Extraocular manifestations, there can be follicular hyperkeratosis, or there can be frequent infections related with respiratory tract or urinary tract. Growth of person may get affected, and what we can find in community is there can be increased prevalence of epithelial cancers, or there can be increase in childhood morbidity and mortality. Regarding treatment also, we have seen yesterday is what we are supposed to use. It's retinol palmitate. Dose we are supposed to give is 2 lakh international unit, and vitamin A is given orally. The recommended doses are only 2 on successive 2 days. Now regarding prevention and control, we are talking regular and adequate intake of the foods which are rich in vitamin A is very essential. In addition to that, we should have to pay attention to reduce all the contributory factors. And in contributory factors, at least 3 important things you should not forget, that is occurrence of protein energy malnutrition, occurrence of measles, and occurrence of diarrhea. So simultaneously we are supposed to reduce frequency of all these factors which are contributing to deficiency of vitamin A. Now in community, it is very essential to give nutrition education to the people. As far as nutrition education is concerned, people should be made aware regarding what are various sources of vitamin A which should be included in their diet. And one more strategy is administration of vitamin A to high risk group. Here, high risk group, it mainly includes preschool children. And again, if you want to specify the age group, it is from 6 months to 6 years. This guideline you are supposed to know. First thing, abbreviation NIN, that is National Institute of Nutrition. National Institute of Nutrition. What is the guideline given? It is the guideline given for this is administration of vitamin A, and this is prophylactic administration. For prophylaxis of vitamin A deficiency in community, we are giving it to whom we are supposed to give. This is given to preschool children. Okay, this is given to preschool children. Okay. In preschool children, again our focus for administration of vitamin A is high risk group, that is 6 months to 6 years age group. Dose will differ for infants and the children who are having age 1 year above. For infants, that is from 6 months to 1 year, the dose that we are supposed to give is 1 lakh international unit orally. Okay. If the child comes to you for taking vitamin A and if it is above the age of 1 year, your dose will get doubled. So you will give 2 lakh international units. But remember, this is not only single dose strategy. These doses to the children must be repeated after every 6 months. Okay. So do you got what is the guideline which is given for vitamin A prophylaxis in high risk group? And this guideline is given by National Institute of Nutrition, which is located at Hyderabad. So this guideline is very important. Again, it is another 2-mark question which is asked. It may be asked as NIN guideline or it may be asked as vitamin A prophylaxis. Remember, it's vitamin A prophylaxis, which is again part of our national health programs. Now, since it is part of our national health programs, 2-mark question, you may get either NIN guideline or either vitamin A prophylaxis. So what you are supposed to know, why we are giving it. Okay, so most important aim is to prevent blindness which is associated with deficiency of vitamin A. To whom we are giving it? High risk group. What is the high risk group? 2-6. Okay, 6 months to 6 years. Okay, what we are giving? Vitamin A. Dose 1 lakh international unit for infants and above that 2 lakh international unit. We are supposed to repeat, right? And time for repetition is after every 6 months. Is it clear with this 2-mark question? So these 3-4 points are very, very essential that you are supposed to know regarding guideline for administration of vitamin A. Now another important thing, this aspect that is related with the community. Here you can see one more abbreviation. Right now we have seen one abbreviation NIN. This is another abbreviation VAD. Now VAD, it stands for vitamin A deficiency. It stands for vitamin A deficiency. Now what is our intention? Say for example, right now what we said, deficiency of vitamin A, just in one word you can describe as xerophthalmia. If our intention is to find out the problem of xerophthalmia in our community, what we are going to do, we will conduct survey. Okay, we will conduct survey. Regarding survey, we have talked initially, if you can recall in introductory lecture, we said nowadays the science of nutrition, it is linked with nutritional epidemiology, right? It is linked with epidemiology. So nutrition and epidemiology, since they are linked together, we call this branch as nutritional epidemiology, right? Now in nutritional epidemiology, there are several things that are conducted in community. One of that is survey. So here, if we want to see the problem of xerophthalmia or the problem of deficiency of vitamin A in our community, we will go for assessment of high risk group children. Now as far as assessment is concerned, high risk, अभी आप सबको पता है हम किसे include करेंगे इसमें? These are preschool children, preferably from 6 months age to 6 years age. And here, for assessment, we can use 2 different criteria. One is clinical criteria and second is biochemical, that is laboratory investigation. So we can either use lab investigations or we can use clinical criteria. For clinical criteria, whatever ocular manifestations are there, that we are supposed to see in this age group. Ocular manifestation, Already you know different ocular manifestations, but for assessment, there are 4 manifestations that are taken into consideration. We will look for night blindness. So this is related with the history, right? We can ask mother whether her child is able to see at late evening or not. Second, we are supposed to see Bitort's spots. Now regarding Bitot spots, where you are supposed to see this? On bulbar conjunctiva, and you can see it on either side of cornea, that is you can see it on medial side also, or you can see it on lateral side also. At any side we can see this. And right now you have seen image, foamy appearance, pearly white, round, oval or triangular. These spots, if you find, these will be the Bitot spots. Secondly, we should have to see corneal xerosis and corneal ulcers. And what you can see in the next column, this is the prevalence. Okay, so after looking for these clinical manifestations, first we will take only clinical criteria. Okay, we are supposed to estimate the prevalence. Now regarding how to estimate prevalence, details of this we are going to study in epidemiology chapter. Okay, now if prevalence we estimate, and if this prevalence, the figures what you can see, if night blindness we can see if it is more than 1%. So if we examine 100 children and out of that if we find one child or more than one child is having night blindness. Similarly, the figures we can apply for remaining manifestations, like if prevalence is more than 0.5% for Bitot spot, if it is more than 0.01% for corneal xerosis, or if it is more than 0.05% for corneal ulcer. Okay, either these 4 criterias, or we can go for laboratory examination. तो यहाँ पे we can do serum retinol level. So if serum retinol level, the guideline what we are going to take is if it is less than 10 microgram percent or 10 microgram per deciliter. लेस देन 10 से कम कितने बच्चे हैं ये हमें देखना है. इफ वी फाइंड दैट मोर देन 5% चिल्ड्रन दे आर हैविंग देयर सीरम रेटिनॉल लेवल which is less than 10 microgram. So these 5 criterias, out of these 5 criterias, if any one criteria we find, we can say that the particular community is having problem of vitamin A deficiency or the problem of xerophthalmia in the community. So this is just practical purpose. If you can memorize and write, well and good. Otherwise, initial criteria are very, very essential to mention in your answer. But at community aspect, it is very important when you start practicing. And if you want to conduct service like for xerophthalmia in your community, you can use these guidelines. Now, in what proportion we are supposed to take vitamin A? What is the recommended allowance? Now, table seems big, right? So, here we have categorized the group. So, we are having adults, adult man, adult women, physiological conditions like pregnancy, lactation. Okay. Then we are having infants, again 0 to 6 months and 6 to 12 months. Then 1 to 6 years age group, 7 to 9 and 10 to 17. Next column you can see requirement of vitamin A as far as retinol is concerned, and next you can see beta carotene. So I will give you few seconds. Please observe this. If you know retinol level, there is no need to memorize the beta carotene requirement. Recommended allowance, it is nothing but daily requirement. In what amount vitamin A should be taken daily. So please observe, and can any one of you tell me what you are supposed to do? Yes, yes. That's it. That's it. If you understand this basic thing, the next column, no need to memorize. Okay. So for adult man, adult women, 600 microgram of retinol is required. This requirement increases during pregnancy by 200 microgram. Lactation, additional 350 micrograms we are supposed to give. Then for infants, it is same. For retinol, we are having beta carotene for 0 to 6 months where there is dash. That's why we are having these two sub groups in this 0 to 6 months and 6 to 12 months. But for infants, it is only 350 micrograms. Then up to from 1 year to 6 years, it is 400 microgram. 7 to 9 or rather 7 year onward till adult man, adult woman, we can say it is 600 microgram. So if you won't be able to recall, at least remember 600 micrograms which are required for most of the age group. And don't forget additional requirement of 200 microgram during pregnancy and additional requirement for lactation which is plus 350 microgram. So is it easy? No need to pay more focus on memorizing the figures. This is again additional criteria. Here you have seen the recommended allowance. It is given in retinol separately. It is given as beta carotene separately. So what is done? One term is adopted and this is retinol equivalent. This is retinol equivalent. So just for MCQ, you are supposed to know what common term it is adopted conventionally for both. For beta, all these figures we can, like retinol we can convert into retinol equivalent, beta carotene or even other carotenoids we can convert it into one unit, and that one unit is retinol equivalent. This is just additional thing to know. Now as we said, yes, microgram. Microgram. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. See. Okay, okay, okay. I got it. Okay. I got it. Basically, for prophylaxis, see, majority of Indians they are in poor socioeconomic conditions, and majority of times this requirement may not be fulfilled. And basically, what is the strategy applied by Government of India? Ki we should not wait for appearance of these signs and symptoms that are related with the deficiency of vitamin A. ओके, तो किसी को ब्लाइंडनेस नहीं होना चाहिए, इसके लिए दिस इज द गाइडलाइन दैट इज गिवन बाय दिस नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट विच वी आर फॉलोइंग. बेसिकली दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ द प्रोग्राम जो प्रोफाइल एक्सिस में हम दे रहे हैं, 1 लाख इंटरनेशनल यूनिट और 2 लाख इंटरनेशनल यूनिट. ओके, दिस इज द पार्ट ऑफ द program. So this will supply the vitamin and it will prevent all these signs and symptoms that are related with the विटामिन ए डेफिशिएंसी. तो गवर्नमेंट को क्या करना है, इंडिया में जो ब्लाइंडनेस है जो कि प्रिवेंटेबल है, यहाँ पे अगर बच्चों को खाने में से विटामिन ए नहीं मिल रहा है प्रॉपरली, ओके, तो हम क्या करेंगे, हर 6 महीने के बाद 5 साल तक उन्हें 6 साल तक उन्हें देंगे ये विटामिन ए, सो दैट we can prevent blindness. This is part of blindness control program. You might have studied in non-communicable diseases also. Is it clear or not? Okay, so basic intention is नहीं होता है, ड्यूरेशन बहुत ज्यादा है ना. वी आर नॉट गिविंग कॉन्सिक्यूटिवली ना, 6 मंथ्स के बाद हम दे रहे हैं, आफ्टर एवरी 6 मंथ्स वी आर रिपीटिंग, सो दैट ड्यूरेशन इज क्वाइट लॉन्ग. Okay, and hypervitaminosis, it is hypervitaminosis, it is mainly seen with vitamin D because many of the practitioners they are giving vitamin D commonly. We will go to that. Okay, so vitamin A toxicity, hypervitaminosis, as I said, it is less common to occur, but if there is excessive intake of vitamin A, it can cause nausea, vomiting, or there can be anorexia. Patient may complain of pruritus, hair loss, And you should be aware if yeah, it's my kind request, please tell the students to enter in time. Okay, so we were talking about if carotene consumption it is excessive, or if the metabolism of beta carotene is defective, and if excess beta carotene is taken, you should have to pay attention again to one more feature that you can get in your patient. This is related with the staining. Okay, so there is pigmentation of the skin, and what you can find is these pigmentations, it is mainly seen on palms and soles, and the color it may be yellowish or somewhat orange colored pigments which gets deposited. ओके तो palms and soles अगर आप देखते हो सिर्फ वहीं पे ज़्यादा पिगमेंटेशन है, तो देर इज पॉसिबिलिटी दैट पर्सन माइट हैव कंज्यूम्ड excess of beta carotene, but यहाँ पे sclera is not affected. So here it becomes differential diagnosis as far as staining of sclera is concerned. Okay, so toxicity less common to occur. Now let's begin with another new vitamin. This is vitamin D. Vitamin D, as you can see, again there are two important forms of vitamin D which are nutritionally important. Okay, we are calling these two forms which are nutritionally important, D2 and D3. D2 is calciferol and D3 is cholecalciferol. D2 we can obtain it from plant sterols. ओके, D2 हमें मिलेगा प्लांट स्टेरॉल से, और जो D3 है दिस इज प्री फॉर्म्ड विटामिन. yesterday also we have talked about pre-formed vitamin in relation to vitamin A. वहां पे जो था that was retinol which we can obtain from animal food. Similarly for vitamin D3 cholecalciferol, it is pre-formed vitamin, and this also we get from foods, and plus it can be synthesized in our body. So both things, endogenous source भी है, exogenous source भी है. It is for D3 cholecalciferol. Is it clear with the introduction? D2 plant sterol से मिलने वाला है, और जो D3 है we can get it either from food or even our body can synthesize it. Okay, so from skin synthesis or from food, both are the important things related with these. And you should remember these two names. In introduction you are supposed to write D2 calciferol and D3 cholecalciferol. Again, as far as exams are concerned, vitamin A is frequently asked. Vitamin D is also most frequently asked vitamin. Okay, that's why we are spending a lot of time on these vitamins. So once again, D2 is calciferol, D3 is cholecalciferol. Okay, preformed out of this is cholecalciferol. Now here you can see vitamin D as kidney hormone. So first thing we will try to understand why vitamin D is said as kidney hormone. So basically it does not meet the classic definition of vitamin. तो विटामिन के डेफिनेशन में रिगार्डिंग सिंथेसिस हमने क्या बोला था कि विटामिन्स कैन नॉट बी सिंथेसाइज्ड इन आवर बॉडी, और उसके लिए ये एक्सेप्शन है. Since this vitamin can be synthesized in our body, okay, this is called as kidney hormone. There is one more important reason, and it is very important to understand. Few words you may find difficult, but let us try to understand. First basic important thing is whatever vitamin we take, it is inactive. Vitamin जो हम लेते हैं it is inactive. Okay, and there are various functions which are played by vitamin D in our body. But if this vitamin remains in inactive form, it won't be able to carry out various functions. So for this, what is essential? It should get converted into active form. Okay, is it very clear? The inactive form of vitamin D should get converted into active form. Now for this activation, it occurs at two sites. The first site is liver. First site is liver and second site is kidney. Okay, so activation of vitamin D will occur at liver first step and then in kidney second step. Okay, now what happens? This vitamin in the liver, it gets converted to I think time is over. Yes, am I audible? Am I audible? Okay, okay. Okay. So we were discussing inactive form of vitamin D, how it gets converted into active form. There are two important sites. We said this activation will occur in liver and it also occurs in kidney. Now in liver, first, either whether it is vitamin D2 or it is D3, it is converted into 25 HCC, that is 25 hydroxy cholecalciferol. Okay, so vitamin D2 or D3, when it will reach to liver, first it will get converted into 25 hydroxy cholecalciferol. Then it will be carried to kidney where it will get converted to 125 DHCC, that is dihydroxy cholecalciferol. Okay, so two important steps in activation. The sites are liver, second site is kidney. The first active form is 25 hydroxy cholecalciferol and second active form is 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol. Okay, this activation is very essential, and this 125 DHCC, it behaves as steroid hormone, and when it is carried to various sites, it performs different functions. What are various functions? Okay, so under 4 heads, you are supposed to mention the functions. Now, right now we said the vitamin D in its active form. Vitamin D in its active form, it reaches to the target organs or target sites. Now, first target organ is intestine. Now, when 125 DHCC it reaches to intestine, it plays important role in absorption of calcium and in absorption of phosphorus. So in our diet, whatever food we consume, if it contains calcium, if it contains phosphorus, it can be absorbed with the help of vitamin D. So first site is intestine. So simply we can say vitamin D, it helps in intestinal absorption of calcium and phosphorus. Now second target organ is bone. When it is carried to bone, what it does, it mainly stimulates normal mineralization. Okay, it mainly stimulates normal mineralization, and at the same time बोन मिनरलाइजेशन को स्टिमुलेट करने वाला है, एंड इट एनहांसेस बोन रिसॉर्प्शन. Okay, so most important step here is mineralization of bone, which is related with giving strength to the bone. The next function in relation with the kidney, it increases renal tubular absorption of phosphates. Here the site for its action is renal tubules. It acts on renal tubules, and now it will increase reabsorption of phosphate. As far as other functions is concerned, this is very simple and you can mention it for majority of vitamins. This is required for growth. Okay, so two absorptions are there. One is intestinal absorption, which is related with the calcium and phosphorus, and from renal tubules there is reabsorption of phosphates. Secondly, as far as bones is concerned, you should not forget bone mineralization, and it is required for growth. What are the different sources of vitamin D? As far as vitamin D sources is concerned, initially we said there can be endogenous source or there can be exogenous source. Basically, sunlight we get it from outside, but for synthesis of vitamin D from sunlight, there must be presence of precursor in our body, and this precursor, it is 7-dehydrocholesterol. Okay, this is the name of the precursor which is present in our skin, 7-dehydrocholesterol. Now, when this 7-dehydrocholesterol, it gets exposed to the sunlight, to be specifically ultraviolet rays in sunlight. These are UV rays in the sunlight. It gets converted into D3. D3 is what? Cholecalciferol. Okay, so for synthesis, just don't mention the term sunlight. You please mention its precursor, that is 7-dehydrocholesterol. With the help of UV rays, it gets converted into vitamin D3. Okay. And one more thing, how long exposure is required to sunlight? As far as whatever daily requirement of vitamin D is concerned and exposure to sunlight is concerned, the time is just for 5 minutes per day. So 5 minutes per day sunlight exposure is enough to fulfill the demand of vitamin D. Second important source is foods. So from foods we can get vitamin D. Now here also you should know the sequence. Okay, we can get vitamin D only from animal foods. So again this thing you should know very well. Please don't mention vegetable sources for vitamin D. Okay, only animal sources. And again what we said yesterday, same is applicable for vitamin D. Fish liver oils. Not edible, but since it is rich, you are supposed to mention it. And again sequence is halibut liver oil, cod liver oil and shark liver oil. Okay, halibut liver oil, cod liver oil and shark liver oil. Then fatty fish. जो कुछ भी fish fatty है, they can provide good amount of vitamin D. Egg is another source and butter. If you mention milk, you can mention whole milk or you can mention milk fortified with vitamin D. Okay, milk which is fortified with vitamin D. Similarly, like Vanaspati, it is fortified with vitamin A. Vanaspati, it is also fortified with vitamin D. So Vanaspati is another example for source of vitamin D from fortified foods. Excuse me. If you refer to your medicine book where it is mentioned that meat, यहाँ पे in animal sources we have not included meat because meat contains negligible amount of vitamin D. So you should have to mention fish, eggs and you can mention some milk products like butter. Regarding milk, either you can mention whole milk or you can mention milk fortified with vitamin D. So these are the dietary sources of vitamin D. Now regarding deficiency of vitamin D, deficiency, I think you know two important terminologies. The manifestations in children will be different and the manifestations in adults will be different. The manifestations in children we call it as rickets and the manifestation in adults we call it as osteomalacia. So first we will see about rickets. Regarding rickets, there are 2-3 important things you are supposed to know. High risk group. In what group rickets can be seen? So generally high risk group, it includes young children from 6 months to 2 years of age. We said it is 6 months to 2 years of age. The first thing what you can see is, if you understood its function which is related with the bone, it is required for bone mineralization where there is deposition of some salts. Like what happens in these children, the calcification of bones is reduced. Now as a result you can get one more thing, and this causes hypocalcemia. And even you can get the manifestations related with the hypocalcemia. Okay, so first thing, calcification process is affected, there is hypocalcemia, so you can get manifestations related with the hypocalcemia. And the most important thing what you can get is there is growth failure. The children won't be able to grow properly and there can be various bony deformities, different bony deformities. There are certain bony deformities which are enlisted here. So most important thing what you can notice is frontal bossing. Now what is meaning of frontal bossing? Now in this what you can see is the forehead of the child it becomes prominent. Prominence of forehead, we call it as frontal bossing. The legs, if you will observe, you can see curvature. There can be curved legs. Or you can observe deformities in pelvis. In addition, another important sign what you can notice is pigeon chest. Now, what is meaning of pigeon chest? So simply what you can observe, sternum of the patient, it is pushed forward. Now, this thing you should have to correlate whenever you are going to examine a respiratory system of your patient and the part that is related with the inspection, right? In this, what you can observe, there will be, since sternum is pushed forward, there can be increase in antero-posterior diameter. So AP diameter will be increased, which you are supposed to measure or which you are supposed to observe on inspection, and that will one of the important differential diagnosis for the conditions where antero-posterior diameter is increased. It can be rickets in case of children. Okay, so pigeon chest, इसमें क्या होता है, sternum is pushed forward. Next is Harrison's sulcus. So Harrison's sulcus, here it is, what you can find is horizontal depression, and this horizontal depression, it corresponds to the insertion of diaphragm. Okay, so depression which is corresponding to insertion of diaphragm is Harrison's sulcus. Next sign is rickety rosary. For rickety rosary, you are supposed to observe costochondral junctions. Again, part of respiratory system inspection. Costochondral junction, you can find bending at costochondral junctions, and specifically there is involvement of 4th, 5th and 6th rib. Okay, so rickety rosary, it is bending at costochondral junction. Next is kyphoscoliosis. From surgery, you might be knowing what is kyphoscoliosis. Okay, spinal deformity that you can see. And in extreme cases, there can be knock knee, or there can be bow legs, or that can be called as coxa vara. Okay, so all this is mainly related with the medicine aspect, but you are supposed to mention these signs even if you are writing answer for this subject. Okay, so don't forget frontal bossing, curved legs, deformed pelvis, pigeon chest, Harrison's sulcus, rickety rosary, kyphoscoliosis, and knock knee, bow legs, or same thing can be called as coxa vara. So these are all late manifestations. If deficiency of vitamin D occurs in infants, what few initial manifestations you can see? One of the important manifestation that you can see in children is a distended abdomen, which can also be called as pot belly. Okay, then if you see muscle tone, the muscle tone is reduced, muscles are flabby, so this is called as muscular hypotonia, or simply you can say hypotonic muscles. Another important thing, if it is in very small babies, the baby may not be able to support head, okay, which generally occurs at the age of 3 to 4 months. So this function will get affected. At the time of dentition, the teeth eruptions might be delayed. Entire overall growth of these children, it will be slow. And in addition to that, don't forget to palpate fontanelles. Okay, there can be delayed closure of fontanelles related with the deficiency of vitamin D. Okay, and later on there is walking, which can also be delayed. So there can be several other manifestations that are related with deficiency of vitamin D. But few key signs that should be in your answer is frontal bossing, pigeon chest, Harrison sulcus, rickety rosary. And from understanding aspect, don't forget child won't be able to hold the head at the time when the baby is supposed to do it. Delayed dentition, delayed walking, Okay, pot belly, all these can be the manifestations that are related with deficiency of vitamin D in children, which we call it as rickets. Now, what things we can see in adults? As far as adults is concerned, the deficiency is osteomalacia. Please pay attention. There are so many osteos like osteoarthritis, osteomyelitis. Here we are talking of osteomalacia. Okay, deficiency of vitamin D in adults. It is called as osteomalacia. Now, in this condition, what we can see is there might be pain in muscle. Some patient may complain of muscular pain. There can be tenderness over bony regions like pelvic region, or sometimes the patient may be like, complaint given from patient may be like this: there is difficulty in climbing stairs, or there can be difficulty in getting up from sitting position. So there are again so many signs or symptoms, rather we can say, which are related with musculoskeletal system. Okay, and very rarely if it is severe osteomalacia, it can result in spontaneous fractures. Okay, this is the severe cases where it is manifested. Otherwise it's just skeletal pain and it is tenderness. That is the commonest manifestation. For prevention, what we are supposed to do? For prevention, regular exposure to sunlight is essential. As we know, this is one of the most important source for synthesis of vitamin D in our body, and just 5 minutes exposure is enough. So same education should be given to mother should be educated to expose the baby to sunlight. Okay, food fortification. For fortification, what different food articles can be used? It can be vanaspati or it can be milk, which can be fortified with vitamin D, and vitamin D prophylaxis can be given. Regarding daily requirement, the new guideline that is given by ICMR, here one more abbreviation we are going to see. This is ICMR. You are supposed to know full form of this: Indian Council of Medical Research. Okay, so they are emphasizing mainly on exposure to sunlight. But what happens? Some people who are residing in urban areas, there is minimum exposure. So for these children, which are of 1 to 2 year, 10 microgram or 400 international units are recommended by ICMR. Hypervitaminosis. As far as hypervitaminosis and vitamin D is concerned, whatever manifestations we are getting, we can get it due to hypercalcemia. For deficiency, what we said, there is hypocalcemia. Hypocalcemia, it is manifested as tetany. I'm talking about hypo now. It is manifested as tetany. Again, no confusion. This is deficiency disorder. Tetanus is infection with Clostridium tetani. No confusion. Here we are talking about hypocalcemia, which is manifested as tetany. Okay. In hypercalcemia, what can happen? So hypervitaminosis due to vitamin D, it mainly results in some GI manifestations. There can be nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Okay, there can be renal failure in some patients, or due to hypercalcemia, it may affect the rhythm of the heart, and even it can cause some cardiac problems. Okay, so you should be very careful whenever you are giving vitamin D supplementation to your patient. Just don't forget, from practical aspect, your administration of vitamin D, it should not cause hypercalcemia, and keep check on calcium level of your patients. I think we should stop here. Now it's my kind request for CR to start with the attendance. It's